Before the release of Phoebe and Brant, I would like to take one step into the future and look at who the potential 2.2 character is going to be, and what they're going to do. If you've been paying attention to the news, you will know that Cantarella is going to be the character coming in 2.2, but what she will do is still very up in the air. So I would like to speculate a little bit on what Cantarella's kit might entail, and the potential effects that this kit would have on the game's meta. So starting off with the information that we do have, the one thing that is set in stone is the fact that Cantarella is going to be a Havoc character. Now why do I say this? Multiple leakers have said that it is going to be Havoc, but there is also additional reason to believe that Cantarella is going to be a Havoc character, mainly coming from the Lorelei Echo. Lorelei, as many of you may know, is the boss within the Atrium of Reflections. Now, what do we see a lot when fighting Lorelei? Water. So it seems that Havoc and water might have a correlation. Is this entirely the case? Maybe not. But we do see that Cantarella has jellyfish, and all of the scenes where she appears within the trailer have a purple haze, which makes me think that Cantarella is going to be a Havoc character. Now moving back to Lorelei, she is an Echo on the Midnight Veil set, which is currently only used by Rochia, and Rochia uses the Nightmare Impermanence Heron. So who is going to use Lorelei? Well, some people say that it's Donjin, some people say that she doesn't really have a user yet, and I more so lean towards the there is no Lorelei user yet category, because Lorelei buffs basic attacks and Havoc damage passively. So there's not really any character that would want to use Lorelei so far, which makes me think that a Havoc character is still coming, and the main option for this Havoc character is going to be, in my opinion, Cantarella. Now that we've defined that Cantarella is going to be a Havoc character, we have to discuss what role in a team she's going to be, and I thought of two possibilities. First of all, Cantarella might be a pure healer. Obviously, the main reason I would have to say this is because we don't really have 3 of them yet. We only have 2 good ones in the form of Verena and Shorekeeper. And while Baizhi is technically usable, a lot of people choose to just not use a 3rd healer in the first place, mainly because they take too much time for too little damage in a floor that doesn't really require much effort. So a 3rd good healer is something that this game still does not have. But there is more reason to believe this than just, oh, we need another one. And that is that Cantarella's effects feature jellyfish. Now, why do I point out that she uses jellyfish? It is just a jellyfish. There's nothing really that interesting about it. Well, a lot of people have been comparing her to Kokomi for that reason from Genshin Impact, who is a healer. But this sounds pretty baseless, I understand, but don't worry. In culture and media, water has often been seen as a form of healing, and as I discussed earlier, Cantarella does seem to have some connection with water. She also talked about the Sea of Ghosts, which, again, Sea of Ghosts, so there seems to be yet another connection to water there. Cantarella can quite possibly be a healer, but there is even more reason to suspect that this is going to be the case. Mainly the Tower of Adversity buff when she comes out. The Tower of Adversity during Cantarella's release, at least the middle tower, is going to favor Havoc characters and Fusion characters. Now Fusion is obviously there to tailor towards Brant and Chang-Li, but there is no Havoc character. At least, assuming that Cantarella isn't one. But we know that Cantarella is a Havoc character, and at least if you didn't believe me, now you definitely should. But it's the second passive that interests me here. When a Resonator is healed, their attack is increased, and when a Resonator has a shield, their crit damage will increase. And obviously this is yet again marketing towards Brant. However, we know that it's more than that. After all, the current Tower of Adversity has Spectrofrazzle related buffs, despite Phoebe not being out yet. So obviously, this Tower of Adversity does have Cantarella in mind. So this makes me think that Cantarella will be capable of both healing and shielding. However, considering the fact that Brant is also capable of this and he's not a pure healer, why should Cantarella be? Well, that makes me go on to the next point, being, what if Cantarella was a sub-DPS character? Well, I'm gonna find this pretty hard to believe. And let me explain this. Almost every single 5-star sub-DPS that they have released has come out with a teammate to be used with. Let's go back through them all, shall we? First of all, Phoebe. She does have a sub-DPS mode, but she was also given a main DPS mode, which meant that no matter if you had the future character or not, Phoebe is going to be useful. There's also Rochia, who is very much designed with Camellia in mind, so that means that Rochia came out after her DPS did. Then there's Zhezha. She came out before Carlotta, but she was designed with Jinchi in mind initially. Just look at the leftmost tower in the overdrive zone, and the fact that they paired both Jinchi and Zhezha here, aka Spectro and Glacio. So that means that they very much did intend for Jinchi and Zhezha to be played together. There was also Yinlin, and not only was Jinchi coming the literal next banner, it was also the fact that Yinlin was played with Kalcharo for a time. But this is a pretty weak excuse. But one thing that Yinlin did have going for her is that she had an incredible amount of personal damage, meaning she was an incredible slot in no matter what team you were playing, because she just had the damage to back it up at the time, which means that, yet again, she released with value. So if Cantarella were to be a Havoc sub-DPS, she would either need to have a very large amount of damage like Yinlin, or she would need to be playable with a different DPS, which I don't know if they're gonna be able to do that. One thing they can do is release a new Jinchi teammate, because currently a lot of people's Zhezha has moved to their Carlotta team, leaving their Jinchi without a real teammate. However, I'm not sure if they're going to do this, mainly because I suspect that if she would be a sub-DPS, she's going to use Lorelei, and considering the fact that Lorelei is only on the Night Veil set, that means that it's kind of hard to believe that they would want to pair her with a non-Havoc DPS. Camellia is also not an option, because Camellia already got her support in the form of Rochia, and Sanhua still exists. So this would mean that Cantarella will have no reason to exist. You could say that, oh, it's for Rover, or it's for Donjin, but I highly doubt that they're going to release a new 5-star character just to support a 4-star character. I just don't see it happening. The alternative is that they want her to use the Empyrean Anthem set. After all, the Hecate does do Havoc damage, so it would make sense. And it would also mean that she still is able to be played with Jinchi, and the Midnight Veil set would not be required on her. So this is one way to make a sub-DPS Cantarella work. But if we ever do get the Spectro skill buffer that we've all been waiting for since Jinchi's release, Cantarella would just not have any value again. Unless they, just like Zhezha, introduce a new DPS later on. So the most likely outcomes that I see are either Cantarella is a pure healer, or Cantarella is a sub-DPS that can heal much like Brant, who also has coordinated attacks and skill buffing in order to use her with Jinchi. There's also the possibility of Cantarella being a main DPS, but personally I don't think it's going to happen. But what do you think of Cantarella? What do you think she's going to do, and what are your thoughts on her? I think that her design looks very cool, and I will try to pull for her if she has value on my account, but her existence as a Havoc character does make me a little bit doubtful, considering that my account has almost no investment in Havoc. If you have any questions, be sure to ask me in the comments down below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to ask me a question and make sure I read it, be sure to join my Discord. I'm pretty active in there, and if you ask me a question in there, I'm sure to respond. You can also follow me on Twitter or X for my random thoughts and ramblings. Both my Discord and Twitter are linked in the description. But that'll be it from me. Peace.